Hello, my name is Lucas, this is a bit of lit, and I'm here to talk about a very silly book by Edgar Allan Poe, his only novel, which is called, let's see if I can do this in one breath, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, comprising the details of a mutiny and atrocious butchery on board the American brig Grampus on her way to the South Seas in the month of June 1827, with an account of the recapture of the vessel by the survivors, their shipwreck and subsequent horrible sufferings from famine, their deliverance by means of the British schooner Jane Guy, the brief cruise of this latter vessel in the Antarctic Ocean, her capture and the massacre of her crew among a group of islands in the 84th parallel of southern latitude, together with the incredible adventures and discoveries still further south to which that distressing calamity gave rise. There was a brief pause. I did not breathe in, but man, that was incredibly difficult. If you don't believe me, there it is. And everything, the way I just read it, that is how reading this book feels, because there's purple prose throughout the whole time, and it's overbearing to read. It makes it quite boring. There is not really a dull moment to the story at all, in my opinion. It's just crazy event after crazy event. There's not really, in my opinion, not really a ton of character development necessarily. It's just this well-to-do trust fund baby, Arthur Gordon Pym, who goes on a drunken adventure with his friend aboard a ship, the Ariel, and there's a storm and gets sort of capsized, and he's saved and decides, you know what, as dangerous as that was and as life-threatening as that felt, I want to go on a whaling ship, but I want to be hidden secretly. And then eventually, when the captain has no choice but to keep me and he can't turn back because it would be a complete waste of money, though I do think if they're even a day out, like, it would still be a waste of money, but the resources of the food and water and stuff could get really screwed up in this way. If there's an extra person on board you're not expecting, plus if they're going to work, how do you pay them? Do they get paid at all? Anyway, I can see it's a little weird to me. But he's on this boat, he's trapped in the brig, basically. Sort of feels like he's been buried alive because his friend Augustus never comes to see him forever and ever and ever. And all of a sudden there's this dog who he calls a tiger that scares him, and he feels trapped and claustrophobic. And at this moment, the purple prose works brilliantly. Even in the beginning with the drunken adventure, it's kind of funny. And learning about his grandfather's fortunes in, I guess, the stock market and all this stuff. It works there to build up everything. And then it just keeps going. And it gets a little dull. Then there's a mutiny, and like it says, a mutiny and atrocious butchery on board the Grampus. And, they sort of take back the vessel, as it says, and then they're famished and they need water and they turn to cannibalism. Poe really works well with all these sort of latent fears and very real fears of being out in the middle of nowhere, truly in a sort of desert with no resources around you, even though they're on the ocean. I guess there's fish, but there's no water, no drinkable water, no potable water. And they're running out of water, they're running out of food, they need to eat, and they decide to draw straws. And Richard Parker is the one that gets got. And coincidentally, some years later, a very similar situation happens with the same person with the same name in the same position gets a very similar fate. Very mysterious there, but then there's a turtle. Oh, I almost forgot. Then they see, I guess before the cannibalism, they see a Dutch ship, which is barren and full of the dead and very haunting. And again, the purple prose works brilliantly. But again, it becomes overbearing because it is constant the whole time. It is all purple prose, and it works best in his short stories because they're short, not a whole novel like this book, which is my main problem with it. It's just tiring to read and boring to read. And then, like I said, they are sort of taken aboard another. Augustus dies of infection of some kind, and they're taken aboard another ship, and Arthur gets the ear of this guy, and they explore the unknown, a sort of very new, unexplored part of the world near the Antarctic and the southern latitudes, near the 84th parallel. They come across this island full of unknown people that are quite scary, and they, give him some things, but these people are quite intelligent and take over and brutalize them, except him and his friend and this guy they captured, and then they go off on a boat. And it's very scary still, and again, like the purple prose works in the moment. If you take it a little bit at a time, right? If I was to read this one chapter a day, I think I would have been fine, but I just read straight through, and I was, oh my god, too much Edgar Allan Poe. And they see this white, shrouded, cloudy figure, and then the book ends. And there's a note at the end to sort of explain some things, which, by the way, this is sort of ghost written by Edgar Allan Poe based on true events from Arthur Gordon Pym, but let's listen to those names carefully. Arthur Gordon Pym, Edgar Allan Poe. Anyway, pretty obvious there. It has a preface and 25 chapters, and then there was a notes at the end from my version. There's also these there's these images of cryptography of some kind, and no one knows what to make of it. And I don't know if it's ever been actually solved to figure out what that's supposed to mean. I don't know what it means. It's very confusing. There's a lot of things that I really appreciate about how this book shows fears that people had of his time, of being buried alive, which comes up a couple times, being lost at sea, mutiny, and cannibalism, and fear of the unknown in terms of people, fear of the unknown in terms of location, and spirits, and weird things going on. And what is up with Tiger? He shows up, and then all of a sudden he's not there anymore. I don't know. Fear of the Dead, I guess, as well, with the Dutch ship. It's an incredible book in many ways. It's not really I can't really recommend it to read because it's just overbearing. It's really hard to read, unless you're super into Poe. When I read it back in college, I was super into Poe, and I had a great professor that, when we read it for class, and we got into great depth about every small facet about, is this book about providence? Because none of this could have happened had Arthur's grandfather never struck it big in the stock market, and these kind of things. There's some other clues towards that, especially with the way that Arthur speaks. Maybe this book is about providence. This book is definitely one that has made me, we talked about this in my class as well, made me think about paratext, which is all the text outside of the story itself. For example, the preface. The preface is there to influence you and keep something in the back of your mind to think about while you're reading the actual story, because the way the preface works is to explain that Arthur Gordon Pym didn't really keep exact journal notes on the madness that he went through, but he remembered, what happens after the ghostly figure? How does he get to Poe? How does he get in contact with Poe? who is the sort of ghostwriter, which has its own meaning, right? Or maybe even own double entendre. It's a what is going on in this book is what I want to know. It's there's just so much to talk about, really. If you've read this book, let me know what you think. I love it. I still enjoy it. It's not a favorite of mine anymore, because I'm not in love with Poe's writing style anymore. It's just too much, but it's good fun. And it is the kind of book that I think is more fun in an academic way, just to make you think about, you know, what kind of fears did people have in the time it was written, and what is this really trying to say to me, as opposed to did I enjoy what I read, because maybe you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to some extent, but yeah, like I've been saying, the writing style is too much for me. It's more fun to think about what it's supposed to mean than to actually read it, which to me says that it's not worth recommending unless you're that kind of reader. So yeah, thank you.